Hey everybody, and welcome back now to the third episode in our series of refactoring a real node code base. In our previous video, we spoke about removing hard-coded secrets from the application, and I made that the one exception for changes that you can make before having a test suite to back you up with test coverage. So now that that's out of the way, let's work on building up our confidence before we embark on the journey of refactoring our application. And we're going to do that with some test cases. Whenever you choose to refactor, you're taking on risk, and you have to choose how much risk is acceptable for you. Adding test cases helps to reduce the risk and give you some confidence, but it definitely doesn't eliminate the risk. And there's a real cost to it. Developers have to spend time writing the test, maintaining the test, and you also have to weigh that against the opportunity cost for taking that time to build the next big feature of your application. Now, in my case, the application isn't really critical. It's not dealing with sensitive information like social security numbers or bank information. If a student can't cancel a lesson, nobody really gets hurt, and the stakes just really aren't that high right now, so I'm willing to tolerate a little bit of risk. So with that in mind, I did write a bunch of test cases in the form of end-to-end tests that cover the basic functionality of the application, like logging in and booking lessons and canceling lessons and things like that. Now, if you don't have any test coverage, I recommend starting with the end-to-end test coverage because it gives you the broadest range of confidence for the least amount of effort up front. And in like a web application like this, what I'm saying by the end-to-end test cases is that it should use the application as a user would. It should visit the page in the web browser, perform the actions, and then you should be checking for stuff that the user is going to end up seeing on the screen or like certain outward facing behavior, and not checking the internals of your application. So why am I recommending end-to-end tests? I say that because they're definitely slower than unit tests, and they definitely take a lot more upfront time in terms of how much time you spend writing each test compared to like a small tiny unit test, but they definitely give you the broadest range of confidence. As an example, your test case can visit the registration page, sign up, land on the user dashboard, those kinds of things. And with just that one test, you learned so much about your application's behavior. And you'll know that if that test breaks, then you have a real critical issue to deal with. But if the test passes, you know that your web server is serving pages, you have a form to fill in, and it can be submitted. And most likely, if they land on the dashboard, probably your back-end logic for kicking them over to the dashboard after they logged in is all that's working correctly. So you just gain so much confidence from an end-to-end test. For me, my favorite test framework for doing this sort of thing is Cypress, which I'll show right here. So Cypress, which you can visit at cypress.io. So basically it's an Npm package, and you can see I have that installed in my package.json. It's an Npm package here, and it also installs an application on your machine, just like a normal app. In my case, I'm a normal Mac app. So what I'm trying to achieve here, basically, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to take one example, and I'm going to go through trying to automatically register the user and have that run in a test case, and I'll know that if that's passing, I have a lot of good functionality happening. So in this case, like on the register page, first I wanted to actually like visit the register page and then fill in the form here and submit it, and I expect to land on the user's dashboard after doing that. So let's jump in. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to Npm Install Cyprus. You should install that as a dev dependency. And I definitely recommend going through the Cypress documentation. It's really straightforward, and they have really, really great docs. So just check those out. But basically what's going to happen is Cypress is going to create a folder in the root of your project. All that stuff is configurable. You can put it wherever you want, but the default is to put it right here. And then inside there, in the integration folder, you're going to write your your test files. So their convention is with .spec.js at the end. So in this case, I want to do the registration page. So I call mine register.spec.js, and it basically looks like Mocha test. If you ever use the Mocha test framework, it has like a describe block. So I'll put like register in here, and that's just like a descriptive name. And inside of each one, you're going to have an it block, which is going to be the specific test case that you're going to write. In this case, I'm going to say it ends up on dashboard after registering with first name, last name, email, and password. And then I'm going to write out commands to Cypress to tell it what to do. And I want to try to make this as close as possible to the user's behavior, because this is an end-to-end test, which means it really is supposed to mimic the user's behavior. It's not testing the internals of the application, and by keeping it as much as what the user sees as possible, it leaves me as free as I can be to make the internal refactorings if I need to later on. So I want to just try to behave as much as possible like the user, but using the Cypress commands. I'm not going to have something that specifically opens up the web browser. That's all the things that Cypress is going to do. So I'm just going to kind of get started with like the first command. It's pretty straightforward. It's visit, and that just can visit the web page. So in this case, I'm going to go to localhost 3000, which is where my app is running on. And I'm going to try to hit the register page. So I'll just save that. This is the only thing that I'm going to do right now. Just like for linting purposes, I can add that I have a global variables here called describe it, and then cy, which is the Cypress command. And you can just find all that stuff in the documentation of Cypress about like what commands they offer and how they're used. They have great documentation. So I'll save this, and then I'm going to open up another terminal aside from the application listening. And in my case, I want to get my .env in there, and I'm going to call the Cypress open command. So I want the .env, if you remember from the previous video, where I have some environment variables in there that I want Cypress to be aware of. So I'm just making sure that the .env is going to be read. Check out the previous video in order to get a little bit better understanding of what this .env thing is. Okay, so this is the Cypress application over here. Basically, it's just like a list of all the files I have right now. We're working on the register.spec, so I'll just click this one. Otherwise, you can run all of your test cases right there. But I'm just working on this. So for now, I'm going to open that. And what it does is it opens up a Chrome browser, and you'll see there's like kind of two parts to the interface. On the left-hand side over here is where you'll see like all the different commands that Cypress is running on your behalf, basically mimicking this file that we started writing. And then on the right-hand side, it's going to open up the actual, like it's going to be a view into the browser window. So you could see what happened was it visited the web page, and then you'll see the web page on the right-hand side. So far, everything is working as we planned. It's right now shown as green over here in like the sidebar over here, which means that the test has passed. Also shows that I have one test passed. It passed because it was able to do everything that I asked it to do. But in general, we want this test to do more things. And so, we may pass or fail along the way. So we're going to add some more things that it's doing. Like after visiting the page, I want to start filling out all these fields. So Cypress has like some different commands for selecting things. If you want to like get text, like if I wanted to assert something about this text, I can just use like cypress.contains, and then you just give the text right there. And if it finds it, it'll pass. And if it doesn't find it, it will fail the test. So that's like, it's like kind of descriptive, but it's also the actual assertion. In this case, with these fields, I've used placeholders, and you can actually open up, like you have all the access to the Chrome Dev Tools here. So even though it's like really small, I can see that they're all input fields. So like here, they're just labeled by their placeholder. So that's what I'm gonna try to get. So I'm gonna do like cy.get, and in this case, I'm putting in a CSS selector. And one of the nice things about the CSS selectors is you can use attribute selectors. So I'm gonna say placeholder equals, in this case, what do we got? First name, first. Okay. So placeholder equals first. And then you can chain on that dot type, and now you can start typing. So I'll put like Joe. So I'll just save that. And when I save, Cypress automatically recognizes that I saved, and it just will rerun the file. And you'll see that it automatically typed Joe. So now we're just gonna fill in the rest of the fields like that. I know I have 4 of them, so I'll go last. What do we got? Email and password. Smith. The one thing I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to here is that every email needs to be unique from the server side. And since these requests are actually going to hit the server, I think the server is going to complain that I have already registered that email. And so I'm going to try to make these unique. And I'll just do that in a really simple way, like Joe Smith. Let me turn this into a template string. Joe Smith. I'll just throw date.now in there at example.com. And then for the password, we'll go with super secret. Okay. So I'll save that, and now let's see if I can fill out the whole entire form. Awesome. So I got the whole form filled out. Now I want to press the register button, and I want to check that I land on the dashboard. So I said, like, if you have other controls, not the actual input field, because it doesn't the input field doesn't actually contain text, but the button does. It has like text value inside of the DOM. So I'll just say, let me look for register, and then I'll click on it after I do that. And then I want to check that, well, let's just do that first. Okay, so what happened here? I want to show you a really cool feature of Cypress, because what I expected was to land on the dashboard, but I ended up back on the register page and none of the values are filled out. So I think I know what happened, but the easiest way to find out is you can see that as I mouse over on the left-hand side, it kind of highlights what it thinks I'm trying to get at. So like when it's like showing this step for selecting placeholder last, it shows that highlighted in the right-hand side. And then same like for typing Smith, you'll see it actually has like a dot over there, and it's showing me like it's toggling between the before and after snapshot. And when I run down to like contains register, what happened is it actually found a button that said register, but that's in the menu, like the header of the application. So it's finding the wrong button. That's actually visiting the register page. So I can tell Cypress how to like qualify this particular register button, like the green register button here that I want. And I'll do that by just making a little bit more specific about what I'm trying to select. So I'm trying to see if I have like a good way of doing that. I'm gonna try to get close to the form itself. So you'll see that I left a data target ID that looks like a candidate. That makes sense. So like I said, I want to try to be as loose as possible. So I'm just trying to scope it to what I think is like, I wouldn't otherwise have the word register in there, but still seems like a reasonable grouping. So I'm going to try to grab this data target ID register form. And before I do .contains, I can just say, I can, qualify it like that, and chain .contains onto that. But I need to put the brackets around because this is again the CSS selector for attribute. And now when I do it, hopefully it registers. So I definitely saw it click the register button, and you can see that now when I mouse over contains register, it is actually highlighting this green, like this button over here. Now, what happened was after I did that, it submitted the form and I got an error. It says an error occurred because of an invalid CSRF token. So I'm actually going to cover that in a future video. I actually think this is a bug in the application, so we'll cover that. We'll cover what CSRF tokens are and how we can make that change. But what I wanted to just basically get at is use a tool like this. You don't have to use Cypress, but I just happen to like it. It's a great tool for helping you create tests that behave like a user would as much as possible and gives you a lot of confidence going forward. Cypress can do a whole lot more, so I recommend just, again, diving into the documentation and go build out a test suite that kind of gives a broad scope of what your application can do. Try to think of like how you can go through the entire flow as the user does. And if you can successfully do that, again, you'll just have so much more confidence that everything is working. Maybe not every single little detail, but you can just give yourself a lot of confidence up front before we start going in and refactoring. And as you can see, I'm not really using any code coverage tool or something to tell me how much like code is covered from the test cases. That is something that I want to add in, and we'll cover that in a future video also. But for now, I'm just using kind of like my gut feeling just to give me that peace of mind as I go in and make changes early on in the beginning of this process. So I just wanted to keep that short and give the basics of building out some test cases and a little introduction to Cypress. And in the next video, I think we're going to try to tackle what this error is and how we can get past that and actually have the register process go through. If you thought this video was interesting, hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel so that you get updates for all the future videos that are going to come out, because again, this is going to be a long series. It's going to be full of interesting stuff, and it's going to hopefully take your game to the next level. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.